Aho, mitakuye ase. Hello, all my relations. How y'all doing? My name is the Lucky Coyote, and today we are going to be reading some more of the Canterbury Tales. So I hope y'all enjoy it. Yeah, Susie, that does kind of count. So let's get to it. First, let me move on out of the way so we all can appreciate the fire. Oh, shut up? No. It's my chat. There's my stream, damn it. I'll yap if I want. All right. Words of the Knight and the Host. "Ho, my good sir, no more," exclaimed the knight. "What you have said so far no doubt is right, and more than right, but still a little grief would do more for us, in my belief. As for myself, I take a great displeasure in tales of those who once knew wealth and leisure, and then are felled by some unlucky hit, but it's a joy to hear the opposite. For instance, tales of men of low estate who climb aloft, growing fortunate, remain secure in their prosperity. That is delightful, as it seems to me, and is a proper sort of tale to tell. That is certain, by St. Paul's and by its bell." Our host joined in. "This monk, he talks too loud, all about fortune covered with a cloud. I don't know what, and as for tragedy, you heard just now, what has to be must be. It does no good to grumble and complain. What's done is done, moreover, it's a pain. As you have said, to hear about disaster, let's have no more of it. God bless you, master. It's an offense. You're boring us, that's why. Such talk as that's not worth a butterfly. Gives no enjoyment. Doesn't help the game. In short, Sir Monk, Sir Peter, what's your name? I heartily beg you'll talk of something else. But for the clink and tinkle of those bells that hang your bridle round on every side, by my salvation, by the Lord that died, I simply should have fallen down asleep into the mud below, however deep. Your story then would have been told in vain, for quoting the authorities again, when lecturers find their audiences decrease. It does them little good to say their piece. Give us a word or two on hunting, say." "No," said the monk, "I'm in no mood today for fun. Ask someone else, I've said enough." Our host, whose language was a little rough, seeing a priest beside the nun, went on, "Come here, you priest, step forward, you, Sir John, and tell a tale to make our troubles pack. Cheer yourself up, although you ride a hack. What if your ugly horse is poor and thin? If it will serve you, never care a pin. And anyways, keep your heart up, that's the test." "Yes," he replied, "yes, host, I'll do my best. Not to be merry would deserve reproach." And he immediately began to broach his story to us as we all rode on, this charming priest and kindly man, Sir John. The Nun's Priest's Tale. Once long ago there dwelt a poor old widow in a small cottage by a little meadow, beside a grove and standing in a dale. This widow woman of whom I tell my tale, since the sad day when last she was a wife, had led a very patient, simple life. Little she had in capital or rent, but still by making do with what God sent. She kept herself and her 2 daughters going. 3 hefty sows, no more, were all her showing. 3 cows as well. There was a sheep called Molly, sooty her hall, her kitchen melancholy. And there she ate full many a slender meal. There was no sauce piquant to spice her veal. No dainty morsel ever passed her throat. According to her cloth she cut her coat. Repletion never left her in disquiet, and all her physic was a temperate diet. Hard work for exercise and heart's content, and rich man's gout did nothing to prevent. Her dancing apoplexy struck her not. She drank no wine, nor white nor red had got. Her broad was mostly served with white and black, milk and brown bread, in which she found no lack. Broiled bacon or an egg or two there were common. She was in fact a sort of dairy woman. She had a yard that was enclosed about by a stockade and a dry ditch without, in which she kept a cock called Chantilly. In all the land for crowing he'd no peer. His voice was jollier than the organ blowing. In church on Sundays he was great at crowing. Far, far more regular than any clock or abbey bell the crowing of this cock. The equinoctial wheel and its position at each ascent he knew by intuition. At every hour, 15 degrees of movement, he crowed so well there could be no improvement. His comb was redder than fine coral tall, and battlemented like a castle wall. His bill was black and shone as bright as jet. Like azure were his legs, and they were set on azure toes with nails of lily white. Like burnished gold his feathers, flaming bright. This gentle cock was master in some measure of 7 hens, all there to do his pleasure. They were his sisters and his paramours, colored like him in all particulars. She with the loveliest dyes upon her throat was known as gracious Lady Pertelote. Courteous she was, discreet and debonair, companionable too, and took such care in her deportment. Since she was 7 days old, she held the heart of Chanticleer controlled, locked up securely in her every limb. Oh, what happiness his love to him! And such joy it was to hear them sing, as when the glorious sun began to spring. In sweet accord, my love is far from land, for in those far-off days I understand, all birds and animals could speak and sing. Now it befell, as dawn began to spring, when Chanticleer and Pertelote and all his wives were perched in this poor widow's hall. Fair Pertelote was next to him on the perch. The Chanticleer began to groan and lurch, like someone sorely troubled by a dream, and Pertelote, who heard him roar and scream, was quite aghast and said, "O dearest heart, what's ailing you? Why do you groan and start? Fie, what a sleeper, what a noise to make!" "Madam," he said, "I beg you not to take offence, but by the Lord I had a dream, so terrible just now I had to scream. I still can feel my heart racing from fear. God turn my dream to good, and guard all here, and keep my body out of durance vile. I dreamt that roaming up and down a while, within our yard I saw a kind of beast, a sort of hound that tried, or seemed at least, to try and seize me, would have killed me dead. His color was a blend of yellow and red. His ears and tail were tipped with sable fur. Unlike the rest, he was a russet cur. Small was his snout, his eyes were glowing bright. It was enough to make one die of fright. That was no doubt what made me groan and swoon. For shame, she said, you timorous platoon. Alas, what cowardice, by God above! You've forfeited my heart and lost my love. I cannot love a coward, come what may, for certainly, whatever we may say, all women long, and oh, that it might be, for husbands tough, dependable, and free, secret, discreet, no niggard, no fool, not a fool, that boasts and then will find his courage cool. At every trifling thing by God above, how dare you say for shame, and to your love, that there was anything at all you feared? Have you no manly heart to match your beard? And can a dream reduce you to such terror? Dreams are a vanity, God knows, pure error. Dreams are engendered in the too replete, from vapors in the belly which compete with others too abundant, swollen tight. No doubt the redness in your dream tonight comes from the superfluity and force, superfluity and force of the red choler in your blood, of course. That is what puts a dreamer in the dread of crimsoned arrows, fires flaming red, of great red monsters making as to fright him, and big red whelps and little ones to bite him. Just so the black and melancholy vapors will get a sleeper shrieking, cutting capers, and swearing that black bears, black bulls as well, or blackest fiends are hailing him to hell. And there are other vapors that I know, that on a sleeping man will work their woe. But I'll pass on as lightly as I can. Take Cato now, that was so wise a man. Did he not say, take no account of dreams? Now, sir, she said, on flying from these beams, for love of God, do take some laxative. Upon my soul, that's the advice to give. For melancholy choler, let me urge, you'll free yourself from vapors with a purge. And that you may have no excuse to tarry, by saying this town has no apothecary. I shall myself instruct you and prescribe herbs that will cure all vapors of that tribe. Herbs from our very farmyard you will find. Their natural property is to unbind and purge you well beneath and well above. Now don't forget it, dear, for God's own love. Your face is choleric and shows distension. Be careful lest the sun in his ascension should catch you full of humours hot and many. And if he does, my dear, I'll lay a penny. It means about a fever or a breath of turgeon ague. You may catch your death. Worms for a day or two I'll have to give as a digestive, then your laxative. Centaury, fumitory, caper, spurge, and hellebore will make a splendid purge. And then there's laurel or the blackthorn berry, ground ivy too, that makes our yard so merry. Peck them right up, my dear, and swallow whole. Be happy, husband, by your father's soul. Don't be afraid of dreams, I'll say no more. Madam, he said, I thank you for your lore. But with regard to Cato, all the same, his wisdom has, no doubt, a certain fame. But though he said that we should take no heed of dreams by God, in ancient books I read, of many a man of more authority than ever Cato was, believe you me, who say the very opposite is true, and prove their theories by experience too. Dreams have quite often been significations, as well as triumphs as of tribulations, that people undergo in this our life. This needs no argument at all, dear wife. The proof is all too manifest indeed. One of the greatest authors one can read says thus: there were two comrades, one who went on pilgrimage, sincere in their intent, and as it happened they reached a town where such a throng was milling up and down, and yet so scanty the accommodation, they could not find themselves a habitation, no, not a cottage that could lodge them both, and so they separated, very loth. Under constraint of this necessity, and each went off to find some hostelry, and lodge where, whatever way his luck might fall, the first of them found refuge in a stall. Down in a yard with oxen and a plough, his friend found lodging for himself somehow, elsewhere by accident or destiny, which governs all of us and equally. Now it so happened long ere it was day, this fellow had a dream, and as he lay in bed it seemed he heard his comrade call, "Help! I am lying in an ox's stall, and shall tonight be murdered as I lie. Help me, dear brother, help, or I shall die. Come in all haste." Such were the words he spoke. The dreamer, lost in terror, then awoke. But once awake he paid no attention, turned over and dismissed it as invention. It was a dream, he thought, a fantasy, and twice he dreamt this dream successively. Yet a third time his comrade came again, or seemed to come, and said, "I have been slain. Look, look, my wounds are bleeding wide and deep. Rise early in the morning, break your sleep, and go to the west gate. You there shall see a cart all loaded up with dung," said he, "and in that dung my body has been hidden. Boldly arrest that cart as you are bidden. It was my money that they killed me for." He told him every detail, sighing sore. And pitiful in feature, pale of hue, this dream, believe me, madam, turned out true. For in the dawn, as soon as it was light, he went to where his friend had spent the night, and when he came upon the cattle stall, he looked about him and began to call. The innkeeper, appearing thereupon, quickly gave answer, "Sir, your friend has gone. He left the town a little after dawn." The man began to feel suspicious, drawn by memories of his dream to the western gate. The dung cart, off he went, he would not wait. Towards the western entry there he found, seemingly on its way to dung some ground, a dung cart loaded on the very plan described so closely by the murdered man. So he began to shout courageously for right and vengeance on this felony. "My friend's been killed. There's been a foul attack. He's in that cart and gaping on his back. Fetch the authorities. Get the sheriff down, whose ever job it is to run the town. Help! My companion's murdered, sent to glory. What need I add to finish off the story?" People ran out and cast the cart to the ground, and in the middle of the dung they found the murdered man. The corpse was fresh and new. "O blessed God, that art so just and true, thus thou revealest murder, as we say. Murder will out, we see it day by day. Murder's a foul, abominable treason, so loathsome to God's justice and to God's reason. He will not suffer its concealment, true. Things may lie hidden for a year or two, but still murder will out, that's my conclusion." All the town's officers in great confusion seized on the carter and gave him hell, and then they racked the innkeeper as well, and both confessed, and then they took the the wrecks, and there and then they hanged them by their necks. By this we see that dreams are to be dreaded, and in the self-same book I find embedded, right in the very chapter after this, I'm not inventing, as I hope for bliss, the story of two men who started out to cross the sea for merchandise, no doubt. But as the winds were contrary as they waited, it was a pleasant town, I should have stated, merrily grouped about the haven side. A few days later, with the evening tide, the wind veered round so as to suit them best. They were delighted, and they went to rest, meaning to sail the next morning early. Well, to one of them a miracle befell. This man, as he lay sleeping, it would seem, just before dawn, he had an astounding dream. He thought a man was standing by his bed, commanding him to wait, and thus he said, "If you set sail tomorrow as you intend, you will be drowned. My tale is at an end." He woke and told his friend what had occurred, and begged him that the journey be deferred. At least a day, implored him not to start, but his companion, lying there apart, began to laugh and treat him to derision. "I'm not afraid," he said, "of any vision, to let it interfere with my affairs, a straw for all your dreamings and your scares. Dreams are just empty nonsense, merest japes. Why people dream all day of owls and apes, all sorts of trash that can't be understood, things that have never happened and never could. But as I see you mean to stay behind, and miss the tide for willful sloth of mind, God knows I'm sorry for it, but good day." And so he took his leave and went his way. And yet before they'd covered half the trip, I don't know what went wrong. There was a rip, and by some accident the ship went down, her bottom rent, all hands aboard to drown. In sight of all the vessels at her side that had put out upon the self-same tide. So, my dear Berthelot, if you discern the force of these examples, you may learn one never should be careless about dreams, for undeniably, I say, it seems that many are a sign of trouble breeding. Now take Sir Clenham's life, which I have been reading. He was Clenolphus's son, the noble king of Mercia. Now St. Clenham dreamt a thing. Shortly before they murdered him one day, he saw his murder in a dream, I say. His nurse expounded it and gave her reasons on every point, and warned him against treasons. But as the saint was only 7 years old, all that she said about it left him cold. He was so holy, how could visions hurt? By God, I willingly would give my shirt to have you read his legend as I've read it, and Madame Berthelot, upon my credit. Macrobius wrote of dreams and can explain us the vision of young Scipio Africanus, and he affirms that dreams can give a due warning of things that later can come true. And then there's the Old Testament, a manual. Well worth your study, see the book of Daniel. Did Daniel think a dream was vanity? Read about Joseph too, and you will see that many dreams, I do not say that all, give cognizance of what is to befall. Look at Lord Pharaoh, king of Egypt, look at what befell his butler and his cook. Did not their visions have a certain force? But those who study history, of course, meet many dreams that set them wondering. What about Croesus, too, the Lydian king, who dreamt that he was sitting in a tree meaning he would be hanged, it had to be. Or take Andromache, great Hector's Andromede, great Hector's wife, the day on which he was to lose his life. She dreamt about the very night before, and realized that if Hector went to war, he would be lost that very day in battle. She warned him, he dismissed it all as prattle, and sallied forth to fight, being self-willed, and there met Achilles, and was killed. The tale is long, and somewhat overdrawn, and anyhow, it's very nearly dawn. So let me say, in very brief conclusion, my dream undoubtedly foretells confusion. It bodes me ill, I say, and furthermore, upon your laxatives I set no store, for they are venomous. I've suffered by them often enough before, and I defy them. And now, let's talk of fun, and stop all this, dear madam, as I hope for heaven's bliss. Of one thing God has sent me plenteous grace, for when I see the beauty of your face, that scarlet loveliness about your eyes, all thought of terror and confusion dies. For it is certain as the creed I know, mulier est hominus confusio, a Latin tag, my dear madam, meaning this: woman is man's delight and all his bliss. For when at night I feel your feathery side, although perforce I cannot take a ride, because, alas, our perch was made too narrow, delight and solace fill me to the marrow, and I defy all visions and all dreams. And with that word he flew down from the beams, for it was day, and down his hens flew all, and with a chuck he gave the troop a call. For he had found a seed upon the floor. Royal he was afraid no more. He feathered Pertelote in wanton play, and trod her 20 times ere prime of day. Grim as a lion's was his manly frown, and on his toes he sauntered up and down. He scarcely deigned to set his foot on the ground, and every time a seed of corn was found, he gave a chuck, and up his wives ran all, thus royal as a prince who strides in his hall. Leave we this Chanticleer engaged on feeding, and pass to the adventure that was breeding. Now when the mouth in which the world began, March, the first month, when God created man, was over, and the 32nd day thereafter ended on the 3rd of May. It happened that Chanticleer, in all his pride, his 7 wives attendant at his side, cast his eyes upward to the blazing sun, which in the sign of Taurus then had run his 21 degrees and somewhat more, and knew by nature and no other lore that it was 9 o'clock. With blissful voice he crew triumphantly and said, "Rejoice! Behold the sun is up, my 7. Look, it has climbed 40 degrees in heaven." 40 degrees and 1, in fact, by this, dear Madam Pertelote, my earthly bliss. Hark to those blissful birds, and how they sing. Look at those pretty flowers, how they spring. Solace and revel fill my heart, he laughed. But in that moment fate let fly her shaft. Ever in the latter end of joy is woe. God knows that worldly joy is swift to go. A rhetorician with a flair for style could chronicle this maxim in his file of notable remarks with safe conviction. Then let the wise give ear, this is no fiction. My story is true, I undertake, and that of good Sir Lancelot du Lake, who held all women in such high esteem let me return full circle to my theme. Why don't I get 6 more? Saying I'm not the cock of the walk. A coal-tipped fox of sly iniquity that had been lurking round the grove for 3 long years, that very night burst through and past stockade and hedge as Providence forecast, into the yard where Chanticleer the fair was wont with all his ladies to repair. Still in a bed of cabbages he lay, until about the middle of the day, watching the cock and waiting for his cue, as all these homicides so gladly do, that lie about in wait to murder men. False assassin, lurking in thy den, O new Iscariot, new Ganelon, and O Greek Simeon, thou whose treachery won Troy town and brought it so utterly to sorrow, O Chanticleer accused, accursed be that morrow that brought thee to the yard from thy high beams. Thou hadst been warned, and truly, by thy dreams, that this would be a perilous day for thee, but that which gods for knowledge can foresee, must needs occur, as certain men of learning have said. Ask any scholar of discerning, he'll say the schools are filled with altercation on this vexed matter of predestination. Long banded by 100,000 men, how can I swift to the bottom then? The holy doctor St. Augustine shines in this, and there is Bishop Brandewine's authority, bothesis to decreeing, whether the fact of God's divine foreseeing constrains me to perform a certain act, and by constraint I mean the simple fact of mere compulsion by necessity, or whether a free choice is granted me. To do a given act, or not to do it, though ere it was accomplished, God foreknew it, or whether Providence is not so stringent, and merely makes necessity contingent. But I decline discussion of the matter. My tale is of a cock and of the clatter that came of following his wife's advice to walk about his yard on the precise morning after the dream of which I told. O woman's counsel is so often cold. A woman's counsel brought us first to woe, made Adam out of paradise to go, where he had been so merry, so well at ease. But for I know not whom it may displease, if I suggest that women are to blame, pass over that, I speak only in game. Read the authorities to know about what has been said of women, you'll find out. These are the cock's words, and not mine I'm giving. I think no harm of any woman living. Merrily in her dust bath in the sand, Lady Pertelote, her sisters were at hand. Basking in the sunlight, Chanticleer sang free, more merrily than a mermaid in the sea. For Physologulus reports the thing, and says how well and merrily they sing. And so it happened, as he cast his eye towards the cabbage at a butterfly, it fell upon the fox there, lying low. Gone was all his inclination then to crow. Cock, cock, he cried, giving a sudden start, as one who feels a terror at his heart. For natural instinct teaches beasts to flee the moment they perceive an enemy. Though they had never met with it before, this Chanticleer was shaken to the core, and would have fled, the fox was quick to say. However, sir, whither so fast away? Are you afraid of me, that I am your friend? That am your friend? A fiend, or worse, I should be to intend you harm, or practice villainy upon you. Dear sir, I was not even spying on you. Truly, I came to do no other thing than to just lie and listen to you sing. You have as merry a voice as God has given to any angel in the courts of heaven. To that you add a musical sense as strong as had Boethus, who was skilled in song. My lord, your father, God receive his soul. Your mother, too, how courtly, what control, have honored my poor house to my great ease. And you, sir, too, I should be glad to please. For when it comes to singing, I'll say this, else may these eyes of mine be barred from bliss. There never was a singer I would rather have heard at dawn than your respected father. All that he sang came welling from his soul, and how he put his voice under control, the pains he took to keep his eyes tight shut in concentration, then the tiptoe strut, the slender neck stretched out, the delicate beak. No singer could approach him in technique, or rival him in song, still less surpass. I've read the story in Bernal the Ass, among some other verses of a cock, whose leg in youth was broken by a knock a clergyman's son had given him, and for this he made the feather lose his benefice. He made the father lose his benefice. But certainly there's no comparison between the subtlety of such a one and the discretion of your father's art and wisdom. Oh, for the charity of heart, can you not emulate your sire and sing? This Chanticleer began to beat a wing, as one incapable of smelling treason, so wholly had this flattery ravished reason. Alas, my lords, there's many a sycophant and flatterer fill your courts with cant, and give more pleasure with their zeal forsooth than he who speaks in soberness and truth. Read what Ecclesiasticus records of flatterers, where treachery, my lords. This Chanticleer stood high upon his toes. He stretched his neck, his eyes began to close, his beak to open with his eyes shut tight. He then began to sing with all his might. Sir Russell Fox leapt into the attack. Grabbing his gorge, he flung him o'er his back, and off he bore him to the woods, the brute, and for the moment there was no pursuit. O destiny that may not be evaded! Alas, that Chanticleer had so paraded! Alas, that he had flown down from the beams! Oh, that his wife took no account of dreams! And on a Friday, too, to risk the necks, O Venus, goddess of the joys of sex, since Chanticleer thy mysteries professed, and in thy service always did his best, and more for pleasure than to multiply his kind, on thine own day is he to die? O Geoffrey, thou my dear and sovereign master, who, when they brought King Richard to disaster, and shot him dead, lamented so his death. Would that I had thy skill, thy gracious breath, to chide a Friday half so well as you, for he was killed upon a Friday too. Then I could fashion you a rhapsody for Chanticleer in dread and agony. Sure never such a cry or lamentation was made by the ladies of high Trojan station, when Ilum fell, and Pyrrhus with his sword grabbed Priam by the beard, their king and lord, and slew him there, as the Aeneid tells, as what was uttered by those hens, their yells, surpassed them all in palpitating fear, when they beheld the rape of Chanticleer. Dame Pertelote emitted sovereign shrieks that echoed up in anguish to the peaks, louder than those extorted from the wife of Hasdrubal when he had lost his life. And Carthage in flame and ashes lie, she was so full of torment and dismay, that in the very flame she chose her part, and burnt to ashes with a steadfast heart. O woeful hens, louder your shrieks, and higher than those of Roman matrons when the fire consumed their husbands, senators of Rome, when Nero burnt their city and their home. Beyond a doubt that Nero was their Baal. Now let me turn again to my tale. This blessed widow and her daughters too heard all these hens in clamour and halloo, and rushing to the door at all this shrieking, they saw the fox towards the covert streaking, and on his shoulder Chanticleer stretched flat. Look, look, they cried, oh mercy, look at that! Ha ha, the fox! And after him they ran, and stick in hand ran many a serving man. Ran Cole, our dog, ran Talbot, Bran, and Shaggy, and with a distaff in her hand ran Maggie. Ran cow and calf, and ran the very hogs, in terror at the barking of the dogs. The men and women shouted, ran, and cursed. They ran so hard they thought their hearts would burst. They yelled like fiends in hell, ducks left the water, quacking and flapping as on point of slaughter. Up flew the geese in terror over the trees. Out of the hive came forth a swarm of bees. So hideous was the noise. God bless us all. Jack Straw and all his followers in their brawl were never half so shrill for all their noise when they were murdering those Flemish boys. Chanticleer. Chanticleer is the name of the rooster. Chanticleer? A Chanticleer? I don't know. That sounds French, but as that day's hue and cry upon the fox, they grabbed up trumpets made of brass and box, of horn and bone, on which they blew and pooped, and therewithal they shouted and they whooped, so that it seemed the very heavens would fall. And now, good people, pay attention all. See how Dame Fortune quickly changes side, and robs her enemy of hope and pride. This cock that lay upon the fox's back, in all his dread contrived to give a quack, and said, Sir Fox, if I were you, as gods, my witness I would round upon these clods, and shout, Turn back, you saucy bumpkins all, a very pestilence upon you fall. Now that I have in safety reached the wood, do what you like, the cock is mine for good. I'll eat him there in spite of every one. The fox replying, Faith, it shall be done. Opened his mouth and spoke. The nimble bird, breaking away upon the uttered word, flew high into the tree-tops on the spot, and when the fox perceived where he had got, Alas, he cried, alas, my Chanticleer, I've done you grievous wrong, indeed I fear I must have frightened you, I grabbed too hard when I caught hold and took you from the yard. But, sir, I meant no harm, don't be offended. Come down, and I'll explain what I intended. So help me God, I'll tell the truth, on oath. No, said the cock, and curses on us both. And first on me, if I were such a dunce as let you fool me oftener than once. Never again, for all your flattering lies, you'll coax a song to make me blink my eyes. And as for those who blink when they should look, God blot them from his everlasting book. Nay, rather, said the fox, his plagues be flung on all who chatter that should hold their tongue. Lo, such it is not to be on your guard against the flatterers of the world or yard. And if you think my story is absurd, a foolish trifle of a beast and bird, a fable of a fox, a cock, a hen, take hold upon the moral, gentlemen. St. Paul himself, saint of great discerning, says that all things are written for our learning. So take the grain and let the chaff be still. And gracious Father, if it be thy will, as saith my Saviour, make us all good men, and bring us to his heavenly bliss. Amen. Words of the host to the nun's priest. Sir priest, our host remarked in merry tones, blessed be your breeches and your precious stones. That was a merry tale of Chanticleer. If you had only been a secular, you would have trodden a pretty foul, no doubt. Had you the heart, your muscles would hold out. You look as if you needed hens, I mean. Yes, more than 7 times 17. Just look what brawn he has, this gentle priest. And what a neck, his chest's not of the least. As for his eyes, they're like a sparrowhawk's, and his complexion like a box of chalks. He needs no dyes imported from the East or Portugal. Good luck to you, Sir Priest, for telling a fine tale, and saying thus, he turned, as you shall hear, to one of us. Here follows the physician's tale. Let's change the title. Livy has handed down a tale to us about a knight surnamed Virginius. He was a man of honorable birth, rich, well befriended, and of sterling worth. This knight had a daughter by his wife. There were no other children in his life. Of excelling loveliness was she, above all others that a man might see. Nature had shown a sovereign diligence in forming her to such an excellence, as if she wished to say, look, I am nature, and this is how I form and paint a creature. When so I choose, who dares a counterfeit? No, not Pygmalion, though he forge and beat. Color and carve forever I maintain, that Zeus or Apelles would work in vain, to color or to carve, to forge or beat, if they presume to make a counterfeit. For he that is the maker principal appointed me his vicar general, to fashion creatures all that ever were, and paint them as I please, for in my care lies all that's under moon and wax or wane. I form them all, I do not work for gain. My lord and I are leagued in close accord. I made her for the worship of my Lord, and so I do with all my other creatures, whatever be the color of their features. This was, I think, what nature meant to say. The maiden was 14, on whose array nature had spent her care with such delight, for just as she can paint a lily white, redden a rose and teach it to unfurl her petals, so she touched this noble girl. Ere she was born, her limbs, so lissome she, had touched with colour where they ought to be. Phoebus, her mass of tresses with a gleam, had dyed in burnished form this golden stream. And if her beauty was beyond compare, her virtue was 1,000 times more rare. Chat. There lacked no quality in her to move the praises sober wisdom would approve. Chaste of her body and her soul was she, and so she flowered in her virginity, with all humility and abstinence, intemperate and patient innocence, with modesty of bearing and of dress, and showed in speech a modesty no less, though I dare say as wise as Pallas she, was simple in her words and womanly. She used no fancy terms in affection of learning, but according to her station. She spoke in all and everything she said. She showed that she was good and gently bred. Shamefast she was in maiden shamefastness, and constant in her heart she was express, in conquering sloth to fill the busy hour. Over her mouth had never Bacchus's power. For wise and youth swell Venus and for wine and youth swell Venus and desire, much as when oil is cast upon the fire. Indeed, her native goodness, unconstrained, so prompted her that she had often feigned some sickness to escape from company where there was likelihood of ribaldry. As well there may be junketings and dances are good occasions for lascivious glances. Such things as these may soon too early make a child bold and ripe as one can see. That's very dangerous and long has been, for all too soon she learns to play the queen, and show how bold she is when she's a wife, and all you ladies in that middle life are put in charge of younger gentlefolk. Pray do not think I speak as to provoke your anger. Think that your appointment springs from either one or other of two things. Either that you were chaste and did not fail to guard your honor, or that you were frail, and therefore knowing well the ancient dance, you have forsaken your impertinence forever. Teach them then for Jesus' sake, and never slacken, virtue is at stake. Just as a poacher who forsakes his crimes, and leaves his trade in villainy betimes, makes the best gamekeeper, he's just the man. Keep you your charges, if you will, you can. Never belittle or connive at vice, lest you should pay damnation as the price. For those who do are traitors, never doubt it, and so give heed to what I say about it. Top of all the treason's sovereign pestilence is the betrayal done on innocence. You fathers and you mothers, let me add, however many children you have had, yours is the duty of their supervision, as long as they are bound by your decision. Beware lest the example you present, or your neglect in giving chastisement, cause them to perish. Otherwise, I fear, if they should do so, you will pay it dear. Shepherds too soft, who do let their duty sleep, encourage wolves to tear the lambs and sheep. One parable's enough, you understand. Let me return to what I had in hand. This girl, who is the theme of my address, was such as not need a governess. The way she lived, if other girls would look, could teach them more of goodness than a book. Chat. Must be something wrong with Caster Labs. Is he being implemented? Okay. There's a major outage of Caster Labs caffeinated. So, chat, I can see you, but it will not show up on stream. Apologize for that. It's connected to Kick. YouTube and Twitch, it is trying to reconnect. So, I will keep you informed of that if anything occurs. All right. And to continue. In all that should concern a virtuous maid, she was so prudent, bountiful, and staid, and common frame was eager to confess her matchless beauty and her kindliness. Lovers of virtue praised her and gave proof of her deserts, though envy stood aloof, envy that glowers at favor like a thief, and gloats to see another come to grief. A phrase that St. Augustine noted down. This girl one morning went into the town, towards the temple with her mother too, as one may see a girl will often do. Now at that time there was a judge in charge over the city and the land at large, and so it happened that he cast his eye upon this girl as she was passing by, and narrowly appraised her as he viewed her loveliness. A sudden change of mood entered his heart, and feeling himself caught by her attraction, secretly he thought, I'll have that girl, whether I sink or swim. At once the devil entered into him, whose machinations then began to stir and teach him how to have his will of her. He knew quite well that neither force nor fee could suit his purpose in the least degree, for she had powerful friends, and what was more, her sovereignty of goodness closed the door. On his desires he could not hope to win her soul or body to act of sin. So, after much reflection, he sent down for a known blackguard living in the town. As low in cunning tricks as he was bold, he came in secret, then the tale was told. And having heard it, he was made to swear never to tell a soul, and he should dare so much as whisper, he should lose his head. When he agreed to all that had been said of his accursed plan, the judge was glad, and gave him precious gifts, the best he had. When they had framed their whole conspiracy from point to point to suit the lechery that was to be enacted on the sly, though you shall hear about it by and by. Home went the fellow, Claudius was his name. This treacherous judge that was so lost to shame was named Appius, for the thing's no fable, but quite historical, and many able historians will vouch the gist of it. This treacherous judge, I tell you, set his wit to work and went about without delay to gratify his lust. There came a day when the false judge, authorities report, as was his custom, took his seat in court, and gave his judgment upon various cases, all of a sudden in this fellow races, crying, "My lord, I beg your permission for justice in my pitiful petition, touching my suit against Virginius. If he denies it, says it was not thus, then I shall prove it and pronounce good witness to testify the truth of it and fitness. In absence, said the judge, of the accused, definitive award must be refused. Summon him, state your case, and I will hear it. Gladly you shall have justice, never fear it." Virginius came to learn the judge's will, and instantly they read the cursed bill. These were the terms of it, as you shall hear. To you, Lord Appius, it shall appear, on showing of poor servant Claudius, how that a certain knight Virginius, against the law, against all equity, and an express injunction lodged by me, retains a servant that is mine by right, one that was stolen from my house by night. When she was very young, I can support the charge on witness, may it please the court. My lord the judge, whatever he may say, the girl is not his daughter, and I pray my slave may be restored by your good will. This was the tenor of the cursed bill. YouTube is connected, still waiting on Twitch to reconnect. Virginius stared in horror at the churl, but quickly, ere he could defend his girl, and prove it on his honor as a knight, or bring a host of witness as he might, that all was false his enemy had stated, this cursed judge, who never so much as waited to hear the answer of Virginius, spoke out at once and gave his judgment thus: I rule this fellow is to have his slave immediately. The case is very grave. Your house shall not protect her. Fetch the girl. I say the court awards her to the churl. Twitch is connected, so we are back up and running. And when Virginius, this excellent knight, had understood the judge's doom aright, and knew his daughter on compulsion must be handed over to the judge's lust, home he returned, and seated in his hall, he sent a servant bidding him to call his daughter to him, and with ashen face, deathly and cold, gazed on her lowly grace. Fatherly pity pierced him to the heart, and yet he did not falter in his part. Daughter, he said, Virginia I must name, the ways that lie before you, death or shame. One you must take, alas that I was born, O judgment undeserved, O my forlorn and innocent girl to die upon the knife. O my dear daughter, ender of my life, you that I fostered up with such delight, whose thought has never left me day or night. O daughter, you are the last of my woe. You are my last of woe, and last of any joy that I shall know. Be patient, O my gem of chastity, and take your death, for that is my decree. And it is love, not hate, would have you dead. My pitying hand must strike and take your head. Alas, that ever Appius saw your face, to give false judgment in a treacherous case. He told her then all you have heard before. Of what had happened, I need say no more. "O mercy, dearest father," said the maid, and as she spoke she came to him and laid her arms about his neck, as oft she did, and the tears flooded under either lid. Thus as she wept, "O father dear," said she, "am I to die? Is there no remedy?" "None, none, my dearest daughter, hope is dead." "O give me time, dear father," then she said, "let me lament my death a little space." For Jephthah gave his daughter so much grace as to allow her time to sorrow in. Before he slew her, she had done no sin. God knows but ran, the first among them all, to welcome him in solemn festival. And on the word she fell into a swoon, but when her faintness passed, she rose as soon, and thus addressed her father unafraid, "Blessed be God that I shall die a maid. I take my death rather than take my shame, and do your will upon me in God's name." And having spoken thus, the child implored that he would smite her softly with his sword. And then once more she fainted and lay still. Her father, sorrowful in heart and will, smote off her head and took it by the hair, sought out the judge and gave it to him there. Sitting in judgment in the open court, when he beheld it, Livy makes report, he rose and gave the order to his men to take the knight and hang him there and then. 1,000 men came surging from the city, thrusting their way into the court in pity, and hoped to save the knight. The news had flown, the treacherous iniquity was known. For there had been suspicion of the thing, bred from the way the churl had sought to bring his charge upon the knight with the consent of Appius. They knew his lecherous bent, and so it was the people had arisen. They took that judge and cast him into prison, and there he slew himself and Claudius, him that was instrument to Appius. They took and would have hanged upon a tree, but Virginius in clemency begged for his exile. They could scarce refuse, else he would certainly have gotten his dues. The rest were hanged, the greater and the less, that had been party to this cursedness. Here one can see how sin is paid its wages. Beware, for no one knows how God engages, or when to smite the sinner, or how the worm of conscience will bring terror to the firm. In wickedness, however secretly, though none should know of it but God and he, be he illiterate or a man of learning, how soon the blow will fall, there's no discerning. I offer you this counsel, let it make you forsake your sins before your sins forsake you. Words of the host to the physician and to the pardoner. Our host began a violent tirade. "God's nails and blood," he said. "Alas, poor maid, what a low blackguard, what a treacherous judge. Death to all lawyers that would bribe and fudge to trap you, be they judge or advocate. Well, the poor girl was killed at any rate. Alas, her beauty cost her all too dear. Just as I always say, it's pretty clear, the handsome gifts that fate and nature lend us are very often those that least befriend us. Her beauty was her death, as one might say. How pitifully she was made away. Those gifts that I was mentioning just now do us more harm than good, one must allow. Well, my dear sir, if I may speak sincere, Your tale was truly pitiful to hear. Nevertheless, pass on, no sense in fretting. God's blessing on you, doctor, not forgetting your various urinals and chamber pots, bottles, medicaments, and cordial tots, and boxes brimming all with panaceas. God's blessing on them all, and Saint Maria's. You look a proper fellow, pills and pellets. Saint Rionan, you've a figure like a prelate's. Don't I say well, although I lack the art to talk like you? Your story touched my heart. It gave me heart disease, or very near. By corpus bones, I'll need a dose, I fear, or else a good wet draught of malted ale, if someone doesn't tell a cheerful tale. I'm lost in pity, for that poor girl's dead. Come on, old chum and pardoner, he said. Tell us a funny story, break a joke. Right, by Saint Rionan, but I'll have a soak. First at this pub, I've got a thirst to slake, said he. I'll drink and eat a bit of cake. Outcry arose among the gentlefolk. No, no, don't let him tell a dirty joke. Tell something with a moral, something clear, and profitable we'll gladly hear. Granted, he said, but first I'll have to think. I'll ponder something decent while I drink. This ends the physician's tale. Yeah, you don't really want to give someone heart disease. Such a heartbreak that ends up in heart disease. This one is entitled Pardoner's Tale. The Pardoner's Tale Prologue. My lords, he said, in churches where I preach, I cultivate a haughty kind of speech, and ring it out as roundly as a bell. I've got it all by heart, the tale I tell. I have a text, it always is the same, and always has been since I learnt the game. Old as the hills, and fresher than the grass. Rax malordum et cupidias. But first I make pronouncement whence I come, show them my bulls in detail and in sum, and flaunt the papal seal for their inspection, as warrant for my bodily protection, that none may have the impudence to irk or hinder me in Christ's most holy work. Then I tell stories, as occasion calls, showing forth bulls from popes and cardinals, from patriarchs and bishops as I do. I speak some words in Latin, just a few, to put a saffron tinge upon my preaching, and stir devotion with a spice of teaching. Then I bring all my long glass bottles out, cram full of bones and ragged bits of clout. Relics they are, at least for such are known. Then cased in metal I've a shoulder bone, belonging to a sheep, a holy Jew's. Good men, I say, take heed, for there is news. Take but this bone, and dip it in a well. If cow or calf, if sheep or ox should swell from eating snakes, or that a snake has stung, take water from that well and wash its tongue, and it will then recover. Furthermore, when there is pox or scab or other sore, all animals that water at that well are cured at once. Take note of what I tell. If the good man, the owner of the stock, goes once a week before the crow of cock, fasting, and takes a draught of water too, why then, according to that holy Jew, he'll find his cattle multiply and sell, and it's a cure for jealousy as well. For though a man be given to jealous wrath, use but this water when you make his broth, and never again will he mistrust his wife, though he knew all about her sinful life. Though 2 or 3 clergy had enjoyed her love, Now look, I have a mitten here, a glove. Whoever wears this mitten on his hand will multiply his grain, he sows his land, and will come abundant wheat or oats, providing that he offers pence or groats. Good men and women, here's a word of warning. If there is anyone in church this morning guilty of sin so far beyond expression, horrible that he dare not make confession, or any woman, whether young or old, that's cuckolded her husband, be she told, that such as she shall have no power or grace to offer to my relics in this place, but those who can acquit themselves of blame can all come up and offer in God's name, and I will shrive them by the authority committed in this papal bull to me. That trick's been worth 100 marks a year since I became a pardoner, never fear. Then priest-like in my pulpit with a frown I stand, and when the yokels have sat down, I preach as you have heard me say before, and tell 100 lying mockeries more. I take great pains in stretching out my neck, to east and west I crane about and peck, just like a pigeon sitting on a barn, my hands and tongue together spin the yarn, and all my antics are joys to see the curse of avarice and cupidity. It is all my sermon, for it frees the pelf. Out come the pence, and specially for myself, for my exclusive purpose is to win, and not at all to castigate their sin. Once dead, what matter how their souls may fare? They can go on black burying for all I care. Believe me, many a sermon or devotee exordium issues from an evil motive. Some to give pleasure by their flattery and gain promotion through hypocrisy. Some out of vanity, some out of hate, or when I dare not otherwise debate, I'll put my discourse into such a shape, my tongue will be a dagger, no escape. For him from slandering falsehood shall there be, if he has hurt my brethren or me. For though I never mention him by name, the congregation guesses all the same, from certain hints that everybody knows, and so I take revenge upon foes, and spit my venom forth while I profess holy and true, or seeming holiness. But let me briefly make my purpose plain. I preach for nothing but for greed of gain, and use the same old text as bold as brass, Rax malodrum et culpidias. And thus I preach against the very vice I make my living out of, avarice. And yet, however guilty of that sin, myself with others I have power to win them from it. I can bring them to repent, but that is not my principal intent. Covetousness is both the root and the stuff of all I preach that ought enough. Well, then I give examples thick and fast from bygone times, old stories from the past. A yokel mind loves stories from old, being the kind it can repeat and hold. What do you think, as long as I preach and get their silver for the things I teach, that will live in poverty from choice? That's not the counsel of my inner voice. No, let me preach and beg from kirk to kirk, and never do an honest job of work. No, nor make baskets like St. Paul to gain a livelihood. I do not preach in vain. There's no apostle I would counterfeit. I mean to have money, wool, and cheese, and wheat. Though it were given me by the poorest lad, or poorest village widow, though she had a string of starving children all agape. No, let me drink the liquor of the grape, and keep a jolly wench in every town. But listen, gentlemen, to bring things down to a conclusion, would you like a tale? Now that I've drunk a draught of corn-ripe ale, by God, it stands to reason I can strike on some good story that you all will like. For though I am a wholly vicious man, I don't think I can't tell moral tales. I can. Here's one I often preach when out for winning. Now please be quiet. Here's the beginning. The Pardoner's Tale. In Flanders once there was a company of youngsters haunting vice and ribaldry, riot and gambling, stews and public houses, where each with harp, guitar, or lute carouses, dancing and dicing day and night and bold, to eat and drink far more than they can hold, doing thereby the devil sacrifice within that devil's temple of cursed vice, abominable in superfluity, with oaths so damnable in blasphemy, that it's a grisly thing to hear them swear, our dear Lord's body they will rend and tear. As if the Jews had rent him not enough, and at the sin of others very tough. We'll laugh, and presently the dancing girls, small pretty ones, come in and shake their curls, with youngsters selling fruit and ancient bawds, and girls with cakes and music, devils, gods, to kindle and blow the fires of lechery that are so close annexed gluttony. Witness the Bible, which is most express, that lust is bred of wine and drunkenness. Look how the drunken and unnatural Lot lay with his daughters, though he knew it not. He was too drunk to know what he was doing. Take Herod too, his tale is worth pursuing. Replete with wine and feasting, he was able to give the order at his very table, to kill the innocent Baptist, good St. John. Seneca has a thought worth pondering on. No difference, he says, that he can find between a madman who has lost his mind and one who is habitually mellow, except that madness, when he takes a fellow, lasts longer on the whole than drunkenness. O cursed gluttony, our first distress, cause of our first confusion, first temptation, the very origin of our damnation. Till Christ redeemed us with his blood again, O infamous indulgence, curse stain, so dearly bought, and what has it been worth? Gluttony has corrupted all the earth. Adam, our father, and his wife as well, from paradise to labor and to hell, were driven from that vice. They were indeed, while she and Adam fasted, so I read. They were in paradise when he and she ate of the fruit of that forbidden tree. They were at once cast forth in pain and woe. O gluttony, it is to thee we owe our griefs. Oh, if we knew the maladies that follow on excess and gluttonies, sure we would diet, we would temper pleasure, in sitting down at table show some measure. Alas, the narrow throat, the slender mouth, men labor east and west and north and south. In earth, in air, in winter, water, why do you think, to get a glutton dainty of meat and drink? How well of this St. Paul's epistle treats, Meats for the belly, belly for the meats. But God shall destroy both it and them. Alas, the filth of it we contemn. The name, how far more filthy is the act. A man who swills down vintages, in fact, makes a mere privy of his throat, a sink for cursed superfluities of drink. I also have a drink in my hand. So, a bit apropos. So the apostles said, whom tears could soften, many there are, as I have told you often, and weep to tell, whose gluttony sufficed to make them enemies of the cross of Christ, whose ending is destruction, and whose God their belly. O thou belly stinking pod of dung and foul corruption, that canst send thy filthy music forth at other end. What labor and expense it is to find thy sustenance, these cooks that strain and grind, and bray in mortars trends substinate, God's gifts into a flavor on a plate, to please a lecherous palate, how they batter hard bones to put some marrow on your platter. Spicery, root, bark, leaf, they search and call it, in the sweetest hope of flattering a gullet. Nothing is thrown away that could delight, or whet anew lascivious appetite. Be sure a man whom such a fate fair entices is dead indeed, though living in vices. Wine is a lecherous thing, and drunkenness a squalor of contention and distress. O drunkard, how disfigured is thy face, how foul thy breath, how filthy thy embrace. And though thy drunken nose and stertorous snort, like Samson, something of the sort, yet Samson never was a man to swig. You totter, lurch, and fall like a stuck pig. Your manhood's lost, your tongue is in a burr. Drunkenness is the very sepulchre of human judgment and articulation. He that is subject to the domination of drink can keep no secrets, be it said. Keep clear of wine, I tell you, white or red. Especially Spanish wines, which they provide and have on sale in Fish Street and Cheapside. That wine mysteriously finds its way to mix itself with others, shall we say. Spontaneously that grow in neighboring regions, out of the mixture fumes arise in legions. So when a man has a drink or two, though he may think he is at home with you, in Cheapside I assure you he's in Spain, where it was made, at Lepe I maintain. Not even at Bordeaux he's soon elate, and very near the Samson state. But seriously, my lords, attention, pray. All the most notable acts, I dare to say, and victories in the Old Testament, won under God, who is omnipotent, or won in abstinence, or won in prayer. Look in the Bible, you will find it there. Or else take Attila the Conqueror, died in his sleep in manner to abhor. In drunken shame and bleeding at the nose, a general should live sober, I suppose. Moreover, call to mind and ponder well what was commanded unto Lemuel. Not Samuel, but Lemuel, I said. Read the Bible, that's the fountainhead. And see what comes of grieving judges' drink. No more of that, I've said enough, I think. Having put gluttony in its proper setting, I wish to warn you against dice and betting, gambling, the very mother of robbed purses, lies, double-dealing, perjury, and curses, manslaughter, blasphemy of Christ, and waste of time and money. Worse, you are debased, in public reputation put to shame. A common gambler is a nasty name. The more exalted such a man may be, so much more contemptible is he. A gambling prince would be incompetent to frame a policy of government, and he will sink in general opinion as one unfit to exercise dominion. Stilbon, that wise ambassador whose mission took him to Corinth, was of high position. Sparta had sent him with intent to frame a treaty of alliance when he came, hoping for reinforcement and advice. It happened that he found them all at dice. They're very nobles, so he quickly planned to steal away home to his native land. He said, I will not lose my reputation or compromise the honor of my nation by asking dicers to negotiate, send other wise ambassadors of state. For on my honor I would rather die than be a means for Sparta to ally. With gamblers, Sparta, glorious in honor, shall take no alliances upon her. As dicers make by any act of mine, he showed his sense in taking such a line. Again, consider King Demetrius, the king of Parthia. History has it thus. Sent him a pair of golden dice in scorn, to show he reckoned him a gambler born, whose honor, if unable to surmount the vice of gambling, he was of no account. Lords can amuse themselves in other ways, honest enough to occupy their days. Now let me speak a word or two of swearing and perjury. The Bible is unsparing. It's an abominable thing to curse and swear, it says, but perjury is worse. Almighty God has said, swear not at all. Witness St. Matthew, and you may recall the words of Jeremiah, having care to what he says of lying. Thou shalt swear in truth, in judgment, and in righteousness. But idle swearing is a sin no less. Behold and see the tables of the law, of God's commandments to be held in awe. Look at the third, where it is written plain, thou shalt not take the name of God in vain. You see, he has forbidden swearing first, not murder, no, nor other thing accursed. Comes before that, I say, in God's commands. That is the order. He who understands knows that the third commandment is just that, and in addition, let me tell you flat, vengeance on him and all his house shall fall, that swears outrageously or swears at all. God's precious heart and passion by God's nails, and by the blood of Christ that is at Hales. Seven's my luck, and yours is 5 and 3. God's blessed arms, if you play false with me. I'll stab you with my dagger, overblown by 2 small dice, 2 bitching bits of bone. Their fruit is perjury, rage, and homicide. Oh, for the love of Jesus Christ who died for us, abandon curses small or great. But, sirs, I have a story to relate. It's of 3 rioters I have to tell, who long before the morning service bell were sitting in a tavern for a drink, and as they sat they heard the handbell clink. Before a coffin going to the grave, one of them called the little tavern knave, and said, go and find out that at source look spry, whose corpse it is in that coffin passing by, and see you get the name correctly too. Sir, said the boy, no need, I promise you. 2 hours before you came here I was told
He was a friend of yours in days of old. And suddenly last night the man was slain, upon his bench, face up, dead drunk again. There came a privy thief, they call him Death, kills us all round here and in a breath. He speared him through the heart, he never stirred. Then Death went his way without a word. He's killed 1,000 in the present plague, and sir, it doesn't do to be too vague. If you should meet him, you had best be wary. Be on your guard with such an adversary. Be primed to meet him everywhere you go. That's what my mother said, it's all I know. Publican joined with by St. Mary, what the child says is right, you best be wary. This very year he killed in a large village a mile away, man, woman, serf at tillage, page in the household, children, all there were. Yes, I imagine that he lives round here, there. It's well to be prepared in these alarms. He might do you dishonor. God's arms, the rioter said. Is he so fierce to meet? I'll search for him by Jesus, street by street. God's blessed bones, I'll register a vow. Here, chaps, the three of us together now. Hold up your hands like me, and we'll be brothers in this affair, and each defend the others. And we will kill this traitor Death, I say. Away with him as he has made away. With all our friends, God's dignity tonight. They made their bargain, swore with appetite. These three to live and die for one another, as brother born might swear to his born brother. And up they started in their drunken rage, and made towards this village which the page and publican had spoken of before. Many and grisly were the oaths they swore, tearing Christ's blessed body to a shred. If we can only catch him, Death is dead. When they had gone not fully half a mile, just as they were about to cross a stile, they came upon a very poor old man, who humbly greeted them and thus began. God look to you, my lords, and give you quiet. To which the proudest of the men gave riot, men of riot. To which the proudest of these men of riot gave back the answer, What, old fool, give place. Why are you all wrapped up except your face? Why live so long? Isn't it time to die? The old fellow looked him in the eye and said, Because I never yet have found, why I have walked to India searching round, village and city on my pilgrimage. One who would change his youth to have my age. So my age is mine, and must be still upon me for such time as God may will. Not even death, alas, will take my life, so like a wretched prisoner at strife, within himself I walk alone and wait about the earth, which is my mother's gate. Knocking with my staff from night to noon, and crying, Mother, open to me soon. Look at me, mother, won't you let me in? See how I wither, flesh and blood and skin. Alas, when will these bones be laid to rest? Mother, I would exchange, for that were best, the wardrobe in my chamber standing there, so long, for yours, I for a shirt of hair, to wrap me in, she has refused her grace, whence comes the pallor of my withered face. But it dishonored you when you began to speak so roughly, sir, to an old man. Unless he had injured you in word or deed, it says in Holy Writ, as you may read, Thou shalt rise up before the hoary head, and honor it. Therefore be it said, do no more harm to an old man than you, being now young, would have another do. When you are old, if you should live till then, so may God be with you, gentlemen, for I must go whither I have to go. By God, the gambler said, you shan't do so. Don't get off so easy, by St. John. I heard you mention just a moment gone a certain traitor Death who singles out and kills the fine young fellows hereabout. And you're his spy, by God, you wait a bit. Say where he is, or you shall pay for it. By God and by the Holy Sacrament, I say you've joined together by consent to kill us younger folk, you thieving swine. Well, sirs, he said, if it be your design, to find out death, turn up this crooked way, towards that grove I left them there today. Under a tree, there you'll find him waiting. He isn't one to hide for all your prating. You see that oak? Won't be far to find. And God protect you that redeemed mankind. Aye, and amend you, thus that ancient man. At once the three young rioters began to run and reach the tree, and there they found a pile of golden florins on the ground. New coined, 8 bushels of them as they thought. No longer was it death those fellows sought, for they were all so thrilled to see the sight. The florins were so beautiful and bright, that down they sat beside the precious pile. Wickedest spoke first after a while. Brothers, he said, you listen to what I say. I'm pretty sharp, although I joke away. It's clear that fortune has bestowed this treasure to let us live in jollity and pleasure. Light come, light go, we'll spend it as we ought. God's precious dignity would have thought this morning was to be our lucky day. If one could only get the gold away, perhaps to my house, or else to yours, perhaps, for as you know, the gold is ours, chaps. We'll all be at the top of the fortune, hey, but certainly it can't be done by day. People would call us robbers, a strong gang, so our own property would make us hang. No, we must bring the treasure back by night, some prudent way, and keep it out of sight. So, as a solution, I propose, draw for lots and see the way it goes. The one who draws the longest, lucky man, shall run to town as quickly as he can, to fetch us bread and wine, but keep things dark, while 2 remain in here to mark our heap of treasure. There's no delay. When night comes down, we'll carry it away, all 3 of us, wherever we have planned. He gathered lots and hid them in his hand. Bidding them draw for where the luck should fall, it fell upon the youngest of them all, and off he ran at once towards the town. As soon as he had gone, the first sat down, and thus began a parley with the other. You know that you can trust me as a brother. Now let me tell you where your profit lies. You know our friend has gone to get supplies. Here's the lot of gold that is to be divided equally amongst us 3. Nevertheless, if I could shape things thus, so that we shared it out, the 2 of us, wouldn't you take it as a friendly act? But how, the other said, knows the fact that all the gold was left with me and you. What can we tell him? What are we to do? It is a bargain, said the first, or no? For I can tell you in a word or so what's to be done to bring the thing about. Trust me, the other said. Doubt my word. I won't betray you. I'll be true. Well, said his friend, see that 2. And 2 are twice as powerful as 1. Now look, when he comes back, get up in fun, to have a wrestle then as you attack. I'll up and put my dagger through his back, while you and he are struggling as in game. Then draw your dagger too, and do the same. Then all this money will be ours to spend, divided equally, of course, dear friend. Then we can gratify our lusts and fill the day with dicing at our own sweet will. Thus these two miscreants agreed to slay the third and youngest, as you heard me say. Youngest, as he ran towards the town, kept turning over, rolling up and down. Within his heart the beauty of those bright florins, saying, Lord, to think I might have all that treasure to myself alone. Could there be anyone beneath the throne, God so happy as I then should be? And so the fiend, our common enemy, was given power to put it in his thought that there was always poison to be bought. That with poison he could kill his friends. Men in such a trade the devil sends. Thoughts of this kind has full permission to lure them on to sorrow and perdition. For this young man who was utterly content to kill them both and never to repent, and on he ran, he had no thought to tarry, came to the town, found an apothecary, said, Sell me some poison if you will, I have a lot of rats I want to kill. There's a polecat too about my yard that takes my children, it's hard, but I'll get even, as is only right, with vermin that destroy a man by night. Chemist answered, I've a preparation, which you shall have by my soul's salvation. If any living creature eat or drink a mouthful ere he has time to think, though he took less than makes a grain of wheat, you'll see him fall down dying at your feet. Yes, die he must, and in so short a while, hardly have the time to walk a mile. Poison is so strong, you understand. This cursed fellow grabbed onto his hand a box of poison. Away he ran into a neighboring street and found a man. Lent 3 large bottles. He withdrew and deftly poured the poison into 2. He kept the third one clean, as well he might, for his own drink, meaning to work all night. Stacking the gold and carrying it away, when this rioter, this devil's clay, had filled his bottles up with wine all 3, back to rejoin his comrades sauntered he. Why make a sermon of it? Why waste breath? Exactly in the way they'd planned his death. They fell on him and slew him 2 to 1. Then said the first of them, when this was done, Now for a drink, sit down and let's be merry, for later on there'll be a corpse to bury. And, as it happened, reaching for a sup, took a bottle full of poison up, and drank, and his companion, nothing loth, drank from it also. They perished both. There is in Avancia's long relation concerning poison and its operation, trust me, no ghastlier section to transcend, but these 2 wretches suffered at their end. Thus these 2 murderers received their due, so did the treacherous young poisoner too. O cursed sin, O blackguardly excess, O treacherous homicide, O wickedness, O gluttony that lusted on and diced, O blasphemy that took the name of Christ, with habit-hardened oaths that pride began. Alas, how comes it to that a mortal man, that thou to thy Creator, him that wrought thee, that paid his precious blood for thee and bought thee, art so unnatural and false within? Dearly beloved, God forgive your sin, and keep you from vice of avarice. My holy pardon fees free you all from this, provided that you make the right approaches, that is, with sterling rings or silver brooches. Bow down your heads under this holy bowl. Come on, you men, offer up your wool. I'll write your name into my ledger so, to the bliss of heaven you shall go. For I absolve you by my holy power. You that make offering, clean them at the. You were born, that, sirs, is how I preach. Jesu Christ, soul's healer, I, the leech. Every soul grant pardon and relieve you of sin, for that is best, I won't deceive you. One thing I should have mentioned in my tale, dear people, I've some relics in my bale, and pardons too, as full and fine, I hope, as any in England given me by the Pope. If there be one among you who is willing to have my absolution for a shilling, devoutly given, come, do not harden your hearts, but kneel in humbleness for pardon. Or else receive my pardon as we go, can renew it every town or so, always provided that you still renew each time and in good memory what is due. It is an honor for you to find, it is an honor to have found pardoner with his credentials sound, who can absolve you as you prosper any ancient accident that may occur. For instance, we are all at fortune's back. Your honor, Beck. Your horse may throw you down and break your neck. What a security it is to all who have me here among to call, with pardon for the lowly and the great. Soul leaves body for the future state. I advise our host here to begin. Enveloped in sin. Come forward, host, you shall be the first to pray, and kiss my holy relics right away. Only a groat. Come on, unbuckle your purse. No, no, said he, not I. May the curse of Christ descend upon me if I do. You'll have me kissing your old breeches too. I swear they were the relic of a saint. Although your fundament whipped, although your fundament supplied the paint, now by St. Helen and the Holy Land, I wish you had bullocks in your hand. Wish I had your bullocks in my hand, instead of relics and a reliquarium. Have them cut off and I will help to carry them. We'll have them shrined for you in a hawk's turd. The pardoner said nothing, not a word. He was so angry that he couldn't speak. Well, said our host, if you're for showing peace, I'll joke no more, not with an angry man. The worthy knight immediately began. Seeing the fun was getting rather rough, and said no more, we've all had quite enough. Now, master pardoner, perk up, look cheery. And you, sir host, whom I esteem so dearly, I beg of you to kiss the pardoner. Come, pardoner, drew nearer. My dear sir, let's laugh again and keep the ball in play. They kissed and we continued on our way. This ends the pardoner's tale. Chad, I got a really late start. for stream today. I will stream tomorrow, but I've currently been awake for like 14 hours uh, doing snow removal. So I am exhausted. So we are going to find somebody to raid. So let us see who we can raid. Let's see. I think we're going to raid Vapor Shiro VTuber, who's playing the Elder Scrolls Skyrim Special Edition. I want to thank you all for coming out, and I will see you next time. Now.